Truth hurts when you ain't ready. Growth leads you somewhere better. So take your time, relax your mind. It's alright, yeah. It's alright, yeah. It's alright, yeah, yeah. It's alright, yeah. It's alright, yeah. It's alright, yeah, yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are back at it again. I am back and better than ever. If you are new here, my name is Bridget Mashunganyika, aka Bella, orphan, 3 months old, grew up in the orphanage and now advocating for the orphans as well as telling my story. So if you like what I'm about, please like, share and subscribe. That helps with the growth of this channel. Also, leave your comments. I'd really love to read your comments and I'd love your feedback. So without further ado, let's get into the video. And today's video is titled Life After Orphanage Part 2. So if you watched the previous video, you already know what we're going to talk about in this video. So let's get into it. So I know that in the previous video, I told you guys that I was going to talk about how I then went back to school. But I feel like it's important that I tell you why I didn't succeed in getting a scholarship and what I then did after. Because I mean, it took me 2 years for me to go back to school after A level, and a lot happened within those 2 years. And whatever that happened within those 2 years led me into getting back to school. Those are don't need to get a score. So obviously, I feel like it's important that you know. So I wrote my A level in 2015. I am old, yeah. And then 2016, early 2016, I had already started processing school stuff. I had to be in school by second intake, meaning August. And already I had learned that I had lost my sponsors, and also I had applied at UZ, but obviously I didn't follow up on the application because my heart was not there. So I don't know if I got the place or not. So now I had to start applying for scholarships. And like I said in the previous video, I was applying for Chinese scholarship and UK. With the UK scholarships, there was someone who was willing to help me. Actually, I got someone who was willing to help me for free. I just had to provide my documents and that was it. But I didn't have a passport, so obviously I had to apply for it, which I did, but it took longer than I expected for it to come out. It had 2 errors, and then the third time it was just delayed. So the first error was that of my fingerprints. They said that the fingerprints are faint, and I had to fix that and wait for it again. And then it came out. When it came out, it had an error again, and the error was that of the passport photo. I don't remember what was wrong with the passport photo, but yeah, there was another error. And then the third one, it just got delayed. It just got delayed. It didn't come out the day it was supposed to come out, and I had to wait again. And the person who was helping me now said, "You know what, Bella, I can't help you anymore," because he was now doubting that I was doing something legit. He thought maybe I was now trying to get a passport, a fake one, So he's like, I'm not getting involved. So he ditched me. And all the Chinese scholarships I had to pay, they were not 100%. So I had to pay something. But as it was, I didn't have money, so I had to depend on other people. I asked people that I thought would help me, and some said no, and some said they couldn't help at that time because they didn't have money that time, and then some said yes, but then they didn't come through at the end. So obviously, you know by second intake I was not in school, and I didn't give up. I had to go back to school. I didn't like the life that I was living at that time. Actually, I'll do a video on why, I tried so hard for me to go back to school, and I'll give you all the details because I seriously did not like the life that I was living at that time. I just needed to go back to school. And, I felt inadequate at that time. I felt like I was meant, for more. So obviously, there's no way I was just going to give up and, you know, just go with the flow. So in August, I got a job at GMB, Grain Marketing Board, and I was working as a merchandiser at GMB. So you know what a merchandiser does. I was picking GMB products in supermarkets. That's milli meal, beans, salt, sam, yeah, every product that that's written silo, that's GMB products. So obviously I was doing that by August 2016, and I was getting $100 salary and $40 for transport, even though $40 was not enough for transport. So I would end up even using the salary for transport, because I had four outlets. I had to go to GCPT Bon Marché, and I also had to go to Semi Levis, Pick and Pay, and Bon Marché. And then after, I would go to Bordeaux Brook, Bon Marché. So those four outlets, seriously, $40 was not enough. Though I was staying in Bordeaux, I had to make sure that I save. So I was walking to Semi Levy whenever I go to Semi Levy to work, because I was not going to all of the outlets every day. So every time I had to go and work at Semi Levis, I would walk there, and sometimes when I'm going to CPT, I would also walk. So yeah, that made me save at least, but the distance was still not cool. I mean, it was a bit far because I was coming from Valentine Park to Semi Levis. It's a bit far. So obviously now the money was not okay, but I enjoyed the job. No, I didn't enjoy it. I was grateful that I had the job. The job was difficult, guys. I was only 18, very tiny, and I had to be picking meal and anticipate, nova nhongo chirovarowa upfu tinyatoshepa kuti zvigare. Yo, it was a lot. It was something else. And the manager in disability gave me a hard time because I was not so good at picking the meal. And that's when I even learned that salt is even heavier than meal, trust me. But I made some friends, and sometimes I was getting help from the people I was working with, not like some other merchandisers who were working in those supermarkets. So, I had to be sweet, I had to be smiley for me to get help. And yeah, um it made me feel like, I was less of a burden and the house that I was staying in, because now I was no longer asking for money for her toiletries, for upkeep. And I remember being told that I was supposed to contribute as well to buy things like bread. I mean, all the basics. So yeah, I felt like I was less of a burden, seriously. And that's why I'm saying I was grateful for the job. But still, school was not in the picture here because I couldn't save for school. The money was peanuts. And then by November, we had to move from Borodale to Mandara. The job was no longer worth it now, because that meant that I was going to be using something like $5 every day for me to go to work. That means that I couldn't afford to go to work. I couldn't afford to go to work. That's how bad it was. Imagine you have to go to work, but you still can't afford to go to work because the money they are giving you is so little you can't manage. So I had to make a plan. Time was moving. I needed to further my studies. I was not going to settle for A level. So obviously now I had to come up with a plan. And December, I was going to get $240 only if I reached a certain target. Yeah, if I reached a certain target. So I tried to just stay and work so that I maybe reach the target. And still, I couldn't afford to go to work every day. So sometimes I was not going to work. And seriously, it was a miracle that I managed to reach the target. It really was a miracle. So this time I saved some money. And then January I worked as well. Yeah, I worked in January. But now since I had a passport, I'm like, you know what? Zimbabwe is not doing it for me. I have to leave. Because in my mind I had to try and raise enough for me to get the scholarship that I wanted at that time. So obviously GMB was not a place that I needed at that time. I was going to get old there and I was not even enjoying the work. I mean, sometimes I would even dread going to work. So obviously I had to make a plan. And the thought of leaving Zimbabwe came into my mind. I'm like, I think if I go to SA, look for a job, by 2017 second intake, maybe I may have raised enough for me to continue with the scholarship, with processing the scholarship. Sorry. So obviously that that was the plan now. And January I worked, and then I raised enough for transport. Yeah, I raised enough for transport, and then I told my history teacher. By then I was calling him dad, obviously. I told him that I wanted to go to SA and look for a job so that I raised enough money for me to go back to school, for me to apply for the scholarship. Then he agreed, but some family members did not agree, and they were not happy with the decision. But I had to do it. I had to do it for myself because seriously, sometimes you really have to be your own hero in your own story. You actually, not sometimes, you actually have to be your own hero. If there isn't anyone who is willing to help you, or if there isn't anyone who can help you, maybe you actually have to put matters in your own hands. So yeah, I told myself that I was going to SA because it wasn't working in Zimbabwe. And what happened in SA, how I went there, I think I'll talk about it in the next video. I'll talk about that in the next video. So yeah, it was a process and it wasn't easy, but I had to further my studies and I had to make sure that that happens. So I think this is it. This is the end of this video. In the next video, I'll tell you what happened in SA, how I left Zimbabwe to SA, and what happened. So obviously, that will be Life After Orphanage Part 3. I'm going to take you step by step, guys, to just show you my journey, you know, because my goal now was to just go back to school because I understand that, obviously someone who is in Zimbabwe right now may not believe that school is important, but I believe it is, and it can help you change your life. It can help you, knowledge is power. So I had to go back to school. So this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Stella. Why not change your narrative? Why not change your narrative? How do we leave a legacy of hope for those whose dreams are often forgotten? How do we leave a legacy of hope for those whose dreams are often forgotten. Bye.
Alright, yeah.